I guess we're live. I think. I think. Make sure I turn this volume off. All right, Marquita, are you still there? Are you still with me? Are you with
Sure.
me? GP, are you
Yes.
with me? GP, are
Don't
you
know you
with me?
didn't, Kurt Franklin.
Yes, are you with
Yeah, we are.
me? Yeah, okay, perfect. Let me mute because I don't know. I can't see anything on that one. All right, cool. Let me go back and make sure that you and I, yes, are
I don't
we?
know that we're on speaker view though.
Now we
I'm
are.
definitely here, but I only can see you.
How about now? I just switched it over. All right, there we go. I think we got 4 viewers, 3 viewers. Hey, thank you for joining us. I know we're a little late. Um, Zoom switched some things up on me, so they were taking me down a rabbit hole. But nonetheless, we want to be faithful, whether late but never not show up. So here we are for this week's Q&A with our favorite mortgage lender, the Queen of Mortgages. Thank you, Marquita, once again, and yours truly, your agent for the people. This week, I just wanted to jump out. I kind of switched things around a little bit this week, Marquita.
Okay.
We know it's hard out here for buyers. I have to tell you, because I've been wearing both hats, representing sellers and buyers this past, gosh, since the beginning of this new year. Well, we've been working. We do them both anyway. But it's been hard out here for our buyers to get houses because, as you hear me say every week, the inventory is low. But this week, I want to come from a seller's perspective. And I think we've talked about, how to prepare a good offer in a competing situation. I think we talked about that a little bit last year in one of our previous episodes. But today, I just wanted to chat briefly about the steps when the seller receives multiple offers and how they proceed or how they kind of sort through, right? So, an example, we have a listing that went live Wednesday. We already have multiple offers, right? So, when backing up, when we sit down with our sellers and we're going through the listing agreement and kind of going over what their goals and concern, what they want, what to expect, and what, as a realtor, what I expect from the seller. And in this document, that if you've ever sold a house before, you're familiar with it, the listing agreement. It states in there whether or not the seller authorizes or gives the listing agent permission to disclose other offers, right? So, cleaning ladies here. I don't know if you hear the vacuum. Anyway, and what to, whether or not to disclose if there are multiple offers. Well, most agents are going to call the listing agent and inquire about, what is the seller looking for? Is the property fully available? How many offers do you have? And that's where, as a listing agent, I so understand the frustration, because the listing agent gets bombarded with questions. Hey, or phone calls. Hey, just wanted to chat with you. What is the seller looking for? How many offers do you have? Well, going back to that paragraph in the listing agreement, I'm not at liberty to disclose per the seller's request. So it's frustrating for that buyer's agent. But as a listing agent, it's like, guys, I spell everything out in the listing under the agent's remarks. What to expect, certainly how to comply when showing a property in the pandemic, right? And then I outlined some of the things about submitting the offer, and if there's a deadline, because the seller wants to give everybody an opportunity to see their house, right? And obviously the seller wants to get the best offer with the right terms and price acceptable to them. In addition to that, there is another document that we upload, or that I upload, that kind of gives it some useful information about presenting an offer. We spell out everything. We make it easy for them, right? Who the buyer, the sellers, the names, the conveyances, the list of conveyances, and also I go a step further and upload what the features are, right? So anyway, make it simple. So guys, when you are working with a buyer's agent, and your agent, I know they're doing their due diligence and they're trying to get a leg up, but you got to understand, the listing agent may not be at liberty to disclose, and to respect that. But I'm telling you, for the last few days, I can't even answer. I need a second phone just to field my calls, Marquita, because we're
Wow.
getting so many text messages, phone calls, same question. And I don't want to be rude, because again, I know what it's like to be on the buyer side. And when you're competing and there's not many properties out there, it's tough. So one of the things that of course, I put in there is say, listen, guys, put your best foot forward in these times. Put your best offer out there. Don't go in thinking the seller is going to negotiate, because right now in this climate, this pandemic, and in this time where we have, in most cases, we're certainly less than a month's supply of inventory, right? You guys hear me say that every week. Um, but to go in there and think that the seller is going to come back and negotiate when they've got 10 offers that they're reviewing, they're not going to go back to all 10. They're going to look at them objectively and go through it. Now, because I'm working from the laptop, I'm not going to pull the screen up, but I have a checklist that I go through, and I just kind of pull out all the details that are important to the seller, and we go over each offer. So it's kind of like, Marquita, when you apply for college or you're applying for a job, the person on the other end does not know you personally. They only know you and judge you by what's on paper, right? So again,
Correct.
put your best foot forward. So what do I mean by that? Again, the first thing is read the agent's remarks, right? I don't know, lenders, unfortunately, I don't know. Do you guys give when buyers are coming to you, do you guys give them kind of like a checklist or something to kind of go down to when they are applying for a loan or submitting an application? Once you sit down with them, do you give them kind of a list, like, some of the do's and don'ts, or like, don't go out and make any major purchases if you're planning to buy a house? I mean, do
I
you
mean,
guys?
absolutely. We have our initial checklist to get started, but then we do have some things that we share that, to do and not to do during that process.
Uh-huh.
So what I hear you saying is, in a multiple offer situation, basically, that hopefully the agent has read that checklist or the remarks that you put already in the listing.
Yeah,
Uh,
because it really does help them prepare the offer, and actually put in line with what the seller is looking for. Another thing I will submit too, for any agents that's listening, but Marquita, do your agents, when you're out there, and when the agents are out there submitting offers, especially in this climate, are you available to talk to that listing agent? Because a good listing agent, as we said in the past, is going to vet the borrower by calling that lender. Are you on call for that? Because one of the things, I find very helpful from the listing agent's perspective or side is, if it's a Saturday evening or a Sunday afternoon, and I know it's a weekend, but no days off in real estate. Well, yeah, but anyway, being able to call that lender up and say, hey, listen, you're a buyer, Mr. Joe just wrote an offer, just wanted to check X, Y, and Z. Are you available for those phone calls when your borrower or your borrower is presenting an offer in this?
Buyer, borrower, I understand exactly what you're saying. And you probably missed my video on Wednesday, but I did speak to this for buyers about, who you work with might be important as well in a multiple offer situation.
Well, really,
Just because, thinking about, right now it's very competitive. So any little edge that you can actually have, you want to have. And sometimes that means working with a local accountable lender that is willing to field the calls that might come in at odd hours in respect to an offer that you submitted, right? So it's like if you can't have communication very early on from the beginning, then that could be a problem going through. And you certainly don't want the other side to regret accepting your offer because you were working with a lender that was not responsive. Sometimes we are in the middle doing things. I certainly do still have a life, but I definitely do try to pick up the phone and take those calls. And in some cases now, it's almost about being proactive and calling that listing agent up front and saying, "Hey, I understand that we have a mutual person that submitted an offer on your house. What I'm finding in trying to make these calls, as you showed your screen earlier with your text, you guys are so inundated, you're not even picking up those phone calls right now. So that was a little something special that we used to add and try to do, and it would help push that offer over the hump. But right now, you showed your screen, and it's a true. I've made a few of those calls in the last couple of weekends, and the phone just didn't get answered. So I totally understand.
And
So
yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
so yeah, with that in mind, definitely that's another tip or thing to do if you're going to have to compete, is to hopefully have your money team be able to back you up, and field that call when that contract does hit that agent's inbox, whether that's on a Saturday, Sunday, or in an evening at an evening.
Absolutely. And you said it right. And I've even had lenders to either text me or email. Email is probably better because then
Okay.
I have the opportunity. But just knowing that you're right. That is a very key point. I'm glad you brought that out. Being proactive, having your team, I like that, your money team proactively reach out to that listing agent. Because again, anything that you can do to kind of give you an edge, in submitting that offer or getting it accepted is very key in this time. But I can tell you one thing, and I am learning this too as a buyer. Wearing the listing agent's hat, I'm realizing and understanding that I'm not going to do that to the listing agent because it's not fair. Now, by the same token, it is my job to really want to build rapport with the listing agent to, in the event that say that information is not, articulated in the listing, the agent's remarks, or uploaded online with all the instructions. A good agent is going to do that and prepare that in advance. But those are some very good points. But going forward, once we get all these offers, we collect them. Some of the things that you see is escalations, and again, terms. But again, keeping in mind, so making your offer, if your borrower has the ability to escalate, either they can put their cards on the table or use an escalation. Let me just, again, I'm on a rant this morning in case you haven't figured it out.
It's
But
all
let me
good.
just say this. Please, if you're going to utilize the escalation addendum, don't make it in increments of $500 or $200. That is not enough incentive for a seller to think, if all things being equal, I'm going to take you because you're giving me an extra $500. Let's put ourselves in that seller's position. I mean, really. I have seen escalations that were very attractive. 5,000. Now that's enough to make me say, okay. Also, if you're writing an offer or submitting an offer, buyer, please understand, when you put down your earnest money deposit, that also speaks to the strength of your ability to buy and how serious you are. Don't put a $1,500 EMD or earnest money deposit down on a 4 or a 5 or a 6 or whatever $100,000 house. I get it. Even if they're VA buyers, I know our veterans and I love my veterans. I know you guys get, and we'll let you talk about this because again, that's your wheelhouse, but VA financing, in most cases, there is zero down, right? They can put money down if they choose to, but that is one of the perks of their sacrifice, right? Would you agree with
Yeah, one of the perks is that you've earned the right to have a loan with
that?
no down payment, but that doesn't have anything to do with a earnest money deposit and
Thank
how much money should come out of pocket. Um, And, maybe that's some misconception. No money down has nothing to do with money out of pocket for earnest money deposit, appraisal, home inspection, and things like that. So that's just a matter of education or perception. I think VA buyers get a bad rap because they are not putting money down, but they should have an agent that's coaching them that, oh, just because a loan is no money down, whether they have a down payment or not, at the end of the day, is the seller's bottom line going to make sense for them to take the offer? Well, you're not going to get that offer even looked at if you come in the door, like you said, with $1,500 earnest money deposit. So that is two different worlds right there. And I just think there's a lot of miseducation. And I have promised to teach military mortgage boot camp. I'm working on getting that site secured so that we can go ahead and squash some of the myths. I'm blown away that there's still so many myths out here. And I just think, again, it's miseducation, right? I had someone call me the other day about type of offer, and they were like, well, can this person go conventional versus FHA? Because now they don't even want the FHA loan. And I'm like, wow, you know what? That is miseducation of the real estate agent in this case, right? Because they think automatically if it's conventional, there's no sure shot anything as far as finance is concerned. Just because it says conventional, you really never know what could happen. The only sure shot I think probably is cash, and you better hope whatever you vetted them with is truly money that they have and not some letter that they printed offline to show that they had the money, right? Absolutely. So yeah, so a lot of things floating around now. Like you said, buyers, just put your best foot forward, and agents help coach them over the line by at least reading the remarks first. I agree.
Yeah, and thank you for saying that, because I really would love for you. I love for you. I remember you did the class on the Mythbusters. So
Yes.
often I find still in contracts, um, who are writing, agents writing offers on behalf of a veteran, they're still asking the seller and actually typing it in, to pay for the WDI, or the termite, the wood destroying insect inspection, because the lender doesn't allow, or because they can't pay that fee. And I remember early on in one of your Mythbuster classes that that's just not true anymore. I mean, there was a time where there were certain fees that the veteran couldn't pay, but that's no longer one of them. Please correct me if I'm not right, if I'm missing.
Correct. Now you have to have it where the lender's not charging a 1% origination, but paying the termite inspection, a veteran certainly can. There's going to be some pushback. I've noticed, and I don't know if it's here, but there's actually somewhere in the contract that mentions something about that, right? And the veteran can certainly override what's there and yes, pay their own termite
It's not
inspection. And we're talking not around here. Okay, good.
I haven't seen
I
it.
noticed in one state it actually is there, like, and I was like, that's totally strange.
Yeah.
But we'll bring that class back and address that. I've been getting a lot of VA questions this week, because we have a large VA contingency in our area, right?
Absolutely.
People that are work for the government and have retired, and I just find it shameful that because there's misconception about the actual loan, that now automatically I'm moving all of these offers from veterans aside, which is just
yeah, that happened.
believable.
I think
Yes.
we mentioned that we had it happen where my veterans actually had to switch to conventional, this, in order for their offer to even get looked at, because they were not looking at anything that was outside of cash or conventional.
I mean, I guess somebody has the right to do that. I do think you cut off the number of people that can buy your home when you do something like that. But at the same time, they have the right to do it. And right now, I guess, unfortunately, right now it doesn't matter.
No.
Right. But in a normal market, that would be a huge red flag. And just, I'll start ranting. I'm not going to do it now.
Don't do it.
So I'm going to let you continue with your
I'm going to
video.
bring up one more point, and then I'm going to cut this off, because we can go all day on this one. Then the next thing is I alluded to about the terms. So when you're writing that offer, even if it's not, and I also, again, it goes all the way back to consultation and educating your client, whether it's a buyer or seller. You have to have the conversation up front, and don't be afraid that they're not going to want to work with you because you're giving them the facts. And if that happens, then maybe you guys aren't a good fit, but who you work with truly matters. And education, as you have alluded to several times, is key. Um, so when you're sitting down with them, let them know that sometimes it's not necessarily about the amount. It could be just simply the terms. If you're doing a home inspection and you're making it, if you're doing it, and making it for informational purpose only, don't drag that thing out for 10, 15 days. Get it done, get it in, get it out. If you're going to know if you're going to walk with that or stay with that house. The other thing with when going back to using the escalation addendum, in most cases, these houses are escalating above where they may appraise. And appraisal, my seller asked me this morning, so what happens? I mean, we got one that was like way over the top. Like you just know it's not going to appraise at that amount. I mean, I want my seller to get as much as possible, but we also have to be realistic. So the seller has three options, and the same with the buyer. The seller can either, if she accepts an offer that escalated or the offer came in far above where it appraises, the seller can either agree to the appraised value or totally reject it, or counter the buyer back and say you pay the difference. Now that puts the onus back on the buyer to either come up with the difference or that gap between the appraised value and the sales price. So those are the three options. But Marquita, why don't you just kind of explain a little bit, because I've also been asked, does the lender who picks the appraiser, who chooses the appraiser, and how that whole process works?
That's a good question. I think there's a misconception that we actually call up an appraiser and say,
Of your
hey, Mr.
choice.
Johnson. Yeah, appraiser of my choice. Hey, Mr. Johnson, I need you to go over here and do this appraisal. Before the market crash, that certainly was the case for most of the loan types except VA. Okay, so VA has always maintained appraisal management where you ordered the appraisal through a system and it picks the person. We don't have any contact with them other than sending them the contract until after the report has been done. Part of that is for the reason of making sure that it's objective, right, and that we are not putting pressure on them to bring in values that don't support what's really happening in the market because they're worried about their paycheck. So now we have what's called appraisal management on all types of appraisals. So what that means is we're ordering through a system. It is picking an appraiser. That appraiser is then getting in contact with said listing agent to view the property. You do not have contact or information, conversation with them until after the appraisal is complete, other than the necessary things such as uploading a real estate contract if we were not able to do that. And those communications also are being done by email to track that there is no tampering to push someone to make a value or not make a value. Okay, so it's done through appraisal management. I'm not calling up my favorite appraiser to send them out to a house like I used to do years ago.
Before the crash. So what happens, Marquita, if the appraiser comes from West Virginia? We talk about having that local, working with a local lender who knows the market and that can really work. We're not gonna go there. Get into, the whole people that deal with insurance, etc. But what happens if that appraiser is coming from West Virginia? Who does he really know the community in Arlington? How well versed is he in this region versus West Virginia?
I mean, that's certainly something that could be problematic. It could be problematic, but at the end of the day, the data should be what's driving what's happening, right? And that's by comparable sales, whether they're expert in that area or not. But I will say, I am not a fan of appraisers coming from other areas into this area. However, they are on an appraisal panel. For whatever reason, that management company does feel like they're competent enough to work in certain areas. So they are still allowed to do that appraisal. So I have ran into that one time where I just felt like it was an issue with thought process based on where they were from And because part of it is still a person and it is still subjective,
Right.
right? So we were able to go back in and have some conversation and actually change that value and change their mind. So also from a perspective with that and dealing with appraisals, as the listing agent, provide as much information as you can without, actually tampering to that appraiser as well, right? Because it
Absolutely.
is subjective. They could be from Woodbridge and not understand Arlington, but
Right.
they are on a panel as a competent appraiser that should be able to interpret data and come up with the value.
I agree. Okay, good. Thank you. Last question, and then we can shut this down. Talking again
Okay.
about appraisals.
Yes.
So, what happens if the borrower is using FHA, VA, with all the three types that we talk about: FHA, VA, and conventional, and the appraisal comes in low, and say the seller and borrower cannot come to an agreement, and they walk based on a low appraisal. What happens if the borrower is using FHA financing? Does that appraisal stay with that house for what period of time, or does it go away and we can go back and get another FHA buyer?
That's an excellent question, and our three main loan types all have something different happen. With FHA, what happens is a property is logged with a borrower with a case number, and once that case number is actually assigned, that case number is good for 6 months. But the actual appraisal itself typically is going to be 120 days. It's going to stick with that property. So but here's the caveat, air quotes, if the appraisal's logged in, because in the FHA appraisal could come back. And if it's not logged into the FHA connection system, then the next person could possibly cancel that or transfer whatever that case number and order an appraisal. But that's an internal back end. All things equal, 120 days, that value is going to stick with that actual property, because for us as the lender, we want new collateral update after 120 days, even if that case number is there for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
On VA, so if it's logged, that's going to stick, right?
Right.
If it's VA and the appraisal comes in short and you put the house back on the market, another veteran comes, you can order another VA appraisal on said property. Okay. So Mr. Jones' appraisal through VA came in short. Mr. Smith did a VA appraisal as the new buyer. You can do that. Conventional, no holds barred, new appraisal, period. No time frame, no who it sticks with, none of that. So one that
I'm sorry.
Mhm. And so that might be some of the reason why some people have, oh, well, we just want conventional loans. But there's just so many other features and different things that should go into overall picking of a loan, not just the actual finance type. And of course, that's my opinion because I am a lender. Y'all are out here on these real estate streets. I'm just out here trying to facilitate the best I can. But my buyers are basically getting punched in the face right now.
I think everybody's borrowing.
And I'm talking Mike Tyson type punches, not not the neighborhood guy.
Yeah.
Debo,
I mean, right
Debo.
here and all, the whole nine. Let me tell
Right.
you, this is a funny story. Well, it is very coincidental. One of the buyers I was working with, we were in a competing situation. I think my team might have posted where we won out of, there was 8 offers, etc. And we came down to my offer and another, and we were competing. Well, by the grace of God, my buyers won, right? So we got it. Then I change over to my listing hat. I get multiple offers on another property that I had listed. And I mean, we had several offers. And so I'm going through anyway, again, multiple competing. At the end of the day, the winning bid, I don't know what it was about it, but this name just stuck out. Because if you are in a competing situation and you have to exercise and you exercise your escalation addendum, the listing agent has to show proof of the competing offer, right? So you have to see who you actually outbid. So they can't just arbitrarily say, okay, we're going to choose you and we're going to use your escalation up to the X amount. So they have to show me, or as a buyer's agent, the listing agent has to prove that we were the winning, and they had to utilize our escalation addendum based on that other offer, that competing offer. Well, anyway, the name stuck out at me. Well, as it turns out, this particular buyer actually won the bid on my listing. Well, and this goes to show you that about the inventory being so little out here. Turns out that was the same buyer that my buyer was competing, and we won. And it turns out they end up winning on my listing, which I had no idea who they were until later. I went back. The name for it was a unique name, and for some reason it just kept ringing a bell in my ear and my head. And I went back and I looked. And I said, that's why I knew the name. So I thought it was a great story that even though we beat them on the other end, they actually end up winning on my listing, which was a good story. But that will show you we're out competing against each other in the same price point in this market. So when your agent says, listen, you're not my only buyer, I can show the same house to another buyer that I'm working with if they're in your same price range. So that's another topic for another day. But I thought I'd share that. I thought it was.
Yeah, that's interesting. 2 degrees of separation right now.
Very much, very much, very much. Well, guys, I hope everybody enjoyed our rant. I think we went on and on a bit this morning. I did, not you. But thank you for keeping it balanced and keeping the facts straight and busting some of the myths this morning. So, and everyone else, thank you all for putting up with my late start again. Technical issues once again, but we'll get it right. Anyway, we want to be here for you, be your resource. If you miss us on Saturdays, definitely check Marquita out on Wednesdays. I think it's at 1:00.
That's correct.
Thank you. And again, she's out here providing some resource, some relevant, some raw, some real information for you guys. That's what we're here for. That's why we do this every week. Because we want you guys to be informed, educated, and understanding where, what's going on in our marketplace and what it takes to become a homeowner, or what are the steps or what you need to know in selling your house. And like Marquita said early in the hour, who you work with really matters, albeit a lender or a real estate professional. It really makes a difference. So that's all I got this week. Anything else you'd like to add?
No, that's it. I hear your phone buzzing in the background. So have a good one, and go win some offers out there.
Yeah, I'm gonna do it. We're gonna do it. We're gonna get this one through. Once again, 3 more new. Anywho, all right, you guys have a blessed Saturday. Always, let's make it count. Be safe. I don't think the weather started, but we're looking at some rain and ice today. So I don't like that one so much as I do snow. Anywho, thank you, Marquita. Always, I appreciate your value, and I look forward to catching up with you again later. Happy Valentine's Day, everybody.
Yeah, happy Valentine's Day.
I don't think I can do this right. Anyway, bye. See ya.